Good morning, everybody. What a great spring morning we have. It got hot really quick, though, didn't it? Yes. Sort of hard to find spring clothes when you've been living in fleece for about 8 months. I'm Gary Ray Gray. I'm your worship associate today, and I'm an elder with long gray hair and a purple-pink sort of kimono thing on. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene, and welcome to our Flower Communion Sunday. This is a ceremony shared by many UU congregations around the world. It doesn't fall on a particular Sunday, but it's usually in the spring and early summer. Today is also Mother's Day, a day to honor all the people who have mothered us and cared for us. The day can be a tender day for some of us, so let us hold one another in love today. If you are a first-time visitor, thank you for joining us. Every service is a little bit different, like this one, so we hope you'll come back several times to get a feel of who we are. All the information you need about today's service can be found in our handy guide to Sunday worship. If you didn't get one, please wave your hand, and one of our greeters will bring one to you. Anybody need one? Okay. It has lots of helpful information on things like accessibility and our low stimulation room. Also, please stay after the service for coffee hour. Our welcoming room is in the south foyer over there. It's a place for both long-time and first-time people to meet and greet each other. That's also the room where our membership team holds their Inquirer classes at 11:30. It's a drop-in style class that tells you more about our church and about Unitarian Universalism. So now let us prepare our hearts and minds for worship. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, you are a beloved child of God and a cherished gift of life. We begin our time together with the lighting of the flaming chalice. This is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, which represents the cup of unity and the eternal light of love. Griffin will be lighting the chalice as I share these words from Lisa Doge. In colors bright and essence sweet, like flowers we blossom when we meet. O source of life, our song we raise, this beauty fills our heart with praise. And now let us say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world.
And I'm going to invite anyone who would like to hear a little bit of a story about what we're doing today to come up and join me for just a minute or two. We've got some lovely carpet rectangles, and I'm just going to give a brief talk about the history of flower communion. I could talk about the history of Mother's Day. You know, have you all heard the Mother's Day proclamation? By a lovely UU lady who wanted to make sure people were aware that mothers should not be sending their children off to war. But we're going to focus a little bit on flower communion right now because once upon a time, actually about 101 years ago, in a land far, far away, formerly known as Czechoslovakia, there was a minister by the name of, yikes, Norbert Chapek. It's a little tricky. He was a Unitarian minister. This is before the days of UUs, just a U. Unitarian minister, and he really wanted to think of a new ritual to bring his congregation together. Right? He wanted to recognize and celebrate the differences of everybody in his community and have his congregation, the people in his church, commit to coming together and working together and seeing each other's differences with love. So he thought, what is something that is very, very different and beautiful at the same time? And he thought, look at this countryside filled with all these lovely spring flowers, right? You could be looking at a daisy or a daffodil or an iris or an azalea. They're so different in so many ways, different colors, different shapes, different sizes, but they're all uniquely beautiful. And we bring them all together, and they can make a gorgeous bouquet all together as one. So he invited his church members to go home, take a flower from their garden, or maybe one they bought at the market, and bring it to church. They would come together and put their flower in a beautiful bouquet, and then everyone would take a different flower home with them, right? To treasure that difference. Okay. The bouquet was beautiful, and no two flowers were the same. And our church community wouldn't be the same without each and every one of us here. So I'm actually going to invite you now to head to the back where Mel is, and you're going to help her bring in the flowers that lots of lovely people from our church have brought in to share with us today. So if you turn around, you might see her back there. You can walk back and join her. Hey, Griffin, you want to head back there? Do you want to help her carry up the flowers, Eleanor? Mm-hmm. That would be fantastic. Yeah. Thank you. And we're going to invite the flowers to come up, and we're going to say a little blessing, a consecration for them. Thank you all for all working together so carefully to bring them up for us. That is some fabulous teamwork. Thank you, thank you. That is some gorgeousness right there. Man, isn't our church community beautiful? Whew. Look at that. All right. So now we're going to say a little blessing for these flowers before we go back to our classroom, okay? Because back there, we're going to talk a little bit about Mother's Day. We're going to talk a little bit about caregiving that any parent can do for us or any grown-up in our lives. And we're going to talk about how our church values kind of guide us with our roots. All right, so infinite spirit of life, please bless these flowers of friendship and love. May they remind us, even among our differences, that we can come together in our mission of love. May they also remind us of the value of friendship, and may we see it as one of life's most precious gifts. May we not let jealousy, competition, or disagreements tear us apart, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the diversity of our community makes us beautiful. The pluralism of our church community is like this magnificent bouquet of so many different flowers. Our differences make us unique and so special. All of us are needed in this world. Amen and blessed be.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Jen Youngsun Rue, and I use the pronouns she and her. Today, I'm wearing a red jacket with a purple stole over it, and I'm very, very happy to see all of you today. Thanks for coming to church, even though it's a really pretty day out there. But there's time. You can go outside later. Let us now turn our hearts and minds toward the joys and sorrows of this community. Zoom friends, if you're online and you'd like to share a joy or sorrow, just type it into the chat, and you can share it with each other, and I always read the transcript of the chat. So if there's something in there that you want to follow up with, or you want me to follow up with you, you can write it in the chat. So today, being Mother's Day and all, I thought we could start by just lifting up the names of the people who have mothered us. And so we can kind of make a symphony of names of all the people that we want to remember today. So let us all hold these together in our hearts and pray. O Spirit of unfolding grace and deepest mystery, here we are, tiny humans on this big earth. We have so much to be grateful for. Life itself abounds, and we see it so clearly in these spring days. So much vitality, so much life. And even as we celebrate this season, we also are brokenhearted by war that continues to kill. We send our support to those fighting against violence, young people, peaceful protesters. We send our love to those families waiting for the return of their beloved family members and friends held hostage right now in Gaza. This is a world full of everything. May we take this life that we have been granted. May we not only give thanks for it, but may we take this life and make it something beautiful for our sake and for the world's sake. May it be so. Amen.
I drive through this new town, see the lilacs blooming, and think of you. You tried so hard to grow a lilac, a memory from your childhood home. Planted on the north side of our little house to prevent burning from 110-degree summers, it was outside of my bedroom window, and in all those years, protected from the heat, yearning for light, it never had more than a handful of blossoms. You yourself had difficulty blooming in that town, a place with no symphony, no opera. You subscribed to the Columbia Record Club and bought Beethoven, Sibelius, Madame Butterfly with Eileen Farrell, and Elvis, Doris Day, Frank Sinatra, My Fair Lady. We went to Main Street to watch parades with horses and their riders bouncing in their western saddles while you whispered, "That's not real riding." Real riding was show jumping, your childhood love. Co-workers asked you if Jews still drank blood during ceremonies. That small San Joaquin Valley town was not a nurturing place for a divorced Jewish socialist raising a kid. You did your best, though it took 20+ years for me to put aside the yelling and the hitting, to fully understand the trauma you experienced from your own mother. Classic generational trickle-down pain that began who knows when. Add to that a decade of migraine weekends, night sweats, and never-ending responsibility for our survival. It took me decades to put aside my disappointment in you as a mother and recognize that the best in me is because of you. That the joys I have in life are because you encouraged me to be independent and encouraged my curiosity and creativity. A couple of years in a one-room cabin with a tiny TV, a hot plate, and a seasonal Hanukkah bush. Not a very auspicious beginning for us. But you were determined. You taught me to play the piano and read music because this 8-year-old insisted on pounding on the high keys when you played for Elise. There were subscriptions to monthly science kits, birds, flowers, rocks and minerals, dinosaurs, and insects. Keeping a latchkey 9-year-old amused was not inexpensive. You always let me have the camera and rented a tripod so I could take star trails for a science project. You spent hours throwing baseballs so I could learn to hit and not be excluded from playground teams. You taught me to plant trees and shrubs to get my hands in the dirt, a compulsion I still have. You relinquished your used cruiser when I conquered my bike with training wheels and didn't complain when I ran my new 3-speed bike through mud puddles. You insisted I attend summer school, created pages of math problems, and required book reports during school breaks. Most significantly, you gave me the love of the ocean and the freedom to experience its power, to learn how to be one with it. For hours, I'd float past the breakers on my air mattress until you'd swim out and say, "Go back in and rest." Then you'd swim out farther, farther than anyone I ever saw in all those years. Never run from a wave, you said. Turn sideways and brace for it. I learned you can't be one with something if you run from it. You can't conquer a fear if you run from it. Mom, when you died without warning, we were still in the throes of mutual disappointment. But I want you to know that after 42 years, I can authentically say thank you for 1,000 things, 1,000 lessons. You sacrificed the last 30 years of your life so I could have one so much different than yours, to bloom in ways that you could not. For that, I will be forever grateful.
So depending on the Sunday chosen by the worship team, Flower Communion often coincides with other holidays, like Passover or Father's Day, graduation, or in our case, Mother's Day. Sometimes we recall the story of Norbert and Maya Chapek. Sometimes we celebrate community bound by covenant. Today, we celebrate the flower itself. What one poet called this grace, wholly gratuitous. This grace, wholly gratuitous. I know the world is a serious place right now. I know people are dying now. People are starving now. People are being ordered to kill their fellow humans now. How could we possibly devote an entire hour to something as trivial as flowers? Aren't we too busy for flowers? Aren't we too angry, too heartbroken for flowers? Never. Flowers are everywhere, especially on Mother's Day. But you know, for most of the time here on Earth, there were only cold-blooded creatures and non-flowering plants. For a long, long, long time, this is the way it was. The early flowers were very rare, they were small, and like everything else in the world at that time, kind of a dull greenish brown. And then, millions of years later, all of a sudden, in a mystery that still confounds scientists today, an explosion of flowers appeared. Darwin called this event an abominable mystery. And it just took over the earth. A new branch of flowers evolved, and that lineage includes 99% of all the species of flowering plants that exist today. So everything from the magnolia to a dandelion to a pumpkin. Earth so loved the world that flowers appeared. And then fruit, which is basically sunlight transformed into sugar, sugar that animals can then convert into energy and protein. This energy fed the evolution of warm-blooded creatures, mammals. And eons later, out of that love came poetry and science, art and music. A world now orchestrated by animal-plant interdependence. Now, we know why bees and pollinating insects are attracted to flowers. It makes sense. There's a clear purpose to that. But why? Why are humans attracted to flowers? Color, fragrance, yes. Symmetry, for sure, yeah. And flowers also foreshadow fruit, right? It's a promise of future food. And so the better a person is at identifying flowers and remembering where they are, the more likely that they'll have food in the future. But could there be more to the flower? Could there be more meaning? The prolific botanist Luther Burbank claimed that flowers always make people feel better, happier, and more helpful. They are sunshine and food and medicine for the mind. I wonder if you have a favorite flower. Do you have one? Roses? Poppies? Calla lilies? Yes, we do have favorite flowers. As long as humans have been able to be awake to the gift of transcendent beauty, as long as humans have been conscious enough and evolved enough to take in transcendent beauty, we have found in flowers a mirror for the meaning of our lives. So certain flowers have come to symbolize certain aspects of human life, right? White lilies, we find those often at funerals. Red roses represent romantic love. Crinkly carnations represent friendship. Michael Pollan, who wrote the book The Botany of Desire, talks about the way that we can't really see a budding flower without thinking ahead, whether in hope or in regret. Flowers often spark thoughts and feelings about nature's double-edged sword, are grappling with the energies of both creation and dissolution, birth and death. The Hindu goddess of destruction, Kali, is often depicted surrounded by bright red hibiscus flowers. And in Chinese culture, the chrysanthemum signifies longevity and vitality. The chrysanthemum flower is what 17-year-old Jan Rose Casimir held out to a row of armed soldiers protecting the Pentagon in 1967. On that day, over 100,000 people protested and demonstrated the Vietnam War. It was the largest anti-war demonstration. And this courageous act of this 17-year-old high school student was captured by a photographer and is an enduring image. The significance of the chrysanthemum, emissary of long life and health, is made even deeper hearing what Jan Rose had to say about that day years later. She said, "If you look in my face, I am extremely sad. At that moment, I realized how young these boys were. They were just as much a victim of the war machine as anyone else." Many wise ones over the years have taught that there cannot be a genuine devotion to fighting the forces that deny life without a genuine devotion to the demonstration of beauty that transform mere existence into a life well lived. A slogan from the suffrage movement includes both of these devotions: bread for all and roses too. A phrase that Helen Todd wrote as she imagined a time when life's bread, home, shelter, security, and the roses of life, music, education, nature, books, shall be the heritage of every child that is born in this country, in the government of which she has a voice. The author Rebecca Solnit writes that these roses mean freedom. A society seeking to reinvent human nature wants to reach down into every psyche and rearrange it. Bread can be managed by authoritarian regimes, but roses are something individuals must be free to find for themselves, discovered and cultivated rather than prescribed. Solnit also wrote about George Orwell and his devotion to both fighting totalitarianism and growing roses. In one of his essays, George Orwell writes the story of walking across one of the last intact footbridges in the bombed-out city of Stuttgart, Germany. It was the very end of the war. And as Orwell crossed that small river to the other side, he saw the body of a dead German soldier. His chest was covered with a bouquet of wild lilacs. Those lilacs were blooming all over the city at that time. Some unseen hand had picked these lilacs and brought them and laid them on the body. The flowers could not undo any of the devastation, could not bring this young man back to life. The flowers could not heal the land or stop war, and yet these flowers spoke the unspeakable words, and these flowers echoed the heart song of all who had survived. And they said, here lies a human being, someone who has been loved and who has loved. Somebody, despite which side they fought on, was worthy of beauty. Without flowers, we simply would not be, period. But our relationship with these flowers has grown way beyond just survival. Yes, their fruits and seeds are delicious and good for us, and the flower calls us to look deeper and deeper until we get a glimpse of the mysteries of life itself. Today, we have created a holy space. The words spoken out loud by Gary Ray and myself are just a small portion of all of the thoughts and feelings and ideas that have been alive in this room Not just this room, of course, but rooms out there as well. I can feel it. I can feel it in this room. As you came in, you offered a flower, a portion of yourself in all of its uniqueness. You brought your hopes and your faith and your love along with your sadness and your prayers for change. So now, as we prepare to leave this place, we invite you to come up and receive a flower. Don't worry if you didn't bring one, we have plenty. We have an abundance. So even if you didn't bring one, please feel free to come up and to receive a flower. Let the flower remind you that earth loves you, that God loves you, and that life itself holds you and offers itself to you with a grace wholly gratuitous. Say our closing words together. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now as you go, please do take a few minutes to say hello to the people around you, especially the ones that you have not met yet. And now, help us to be always the hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who knows that without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers. Go in peace, my friends. Go in love.